Next topic. So with complex problems, the decision-making process becomes complex as well. And we are already at the point where humans no longer understand how an algorithm makes a decision. And this can create fear and mistrust, especially in Germany. So yeah, the question is how to make these algorithms more transparent, with the backdrop of German Angst of artificial intelligence. Let's see what Team 2 has to say about this.
So, people tend to be afraid of new things, especially German people, which is kind of understandable when you consider our history. And I also think that Germans are naturally conditioned to be skeptical and rational and overthink stuff. I think we were taught to think this way by Kant. I mean the philosopher. I see some weird faces in here. Anyway, yeah, the reason why some people are frankly frightened of the imminent rise of artificial intelligence is because they don't quite understand it. I mean, let's face it, how many people actually know how a neural network operates and what all those things do? For us, it's kind of like a black box. Even I've studied this thing for 4 semesters now, and I'm just beginning to get a grasp of how it works. So it's granted, it's quite a complicated theme. So yeah, that cat represents the German people who are, yeah, we didn't quite know how serious this whole thing was supposed to be, so, you know. Anyway, yeah, what we're now doing is outlining what we consider are 4 challenges that we're facing and how we're supposed to tackle them. So if you can just, yeah, that's right. So on the one hand, we created this plot that shows the cost of implementing transparency in artificial intelligence related to the importance of transparency. So the first example was Netflix. Netflix is one of the fields in AI that's the most basic and simple. I mean, let's face it, even a 10-year-old can understand how the algorithms work. You just get recommendations based on what you watch. So I wouldn't consider it to be of high priority to make it transparent, and it's also not, you know, really hard. And then you got face recognition, which is, well, I would consider it to be not all that important, but other people might argue against me. But it's definitely one of the hardest things to explain how the algorithm comes to make a decision there. So yeah, now I'm handing it over to my friend.
Thanks. So I'm going to tell you about the credit score, which is also a good example that everybody knows about. And there we could use something that's called clustering. So we could put different user groups that have similar characteristic into one group so that we can now, okay, a persona that belongs to a group is very likely to, for example, don't get the credit. This increases the transparency of the users of such machine learning algorithms. And therefore, their importance is already in the middle, because it's obviously if you get a credit or not, it can really have an influence on your life. But one of the most important use cases that we identified is autonomous driving, where actually right now the need for transparency is really high. But on the other hand, the cost is not so big as we figured out, because usually in an autonomous driving car, you have different components that all come, like, for example, one neural network just for checking the tire pressure or something like that. And then in the total aggregation, they come to a decision. So what we could make transparent is the single factors of those big system, and this would already enhance or make it easier to follow how AI comes to a conclusion. But in general, we came up with some recommendations. Most important one is that it would be beneficial to set up a certification agency. For example, you may know TÜV in Germany, that actually controls how the training data sets have been selected, if it was a meaningful process. and also do this factor decomposition, what I just explained with autonomous driving. And then they could label a software to have fulfilled those requirements, so that everybody that actually uses this doesn't have to really know the technical details, but can trust by the selection criteria. Then very important one is to implement those transparency properties that we came up with into legal framework, because if there's nobody who pressures you to do something like that, then no company will invest into the additional cost. Therefore, it is very important, maybe Conscious Coders can be a format to connect also to the law communities to talk about how to implement those challenges. And then a very general note is to raise awareness of machine learning in society. There's always many applications where it is used nowadays, and just to inform the public about it, what conditions come along with it, would be important to get the topic more into the minds of the people. And finally, to notify them when they actually use a product that has some AI incorporated to it, would enable them to better follow the decisions that come out of it as a result. So that was like a brief overview over what we've been talking today about it. And if you have some more questions, we're happy to talk to you later on. Thanks. That's that's the cat again. So.